So hi, everybody. Welcome. And thank you so much for being here today. My name is Jessica Doherty. I lead the incubator component of TAD, where we work to realize great results through a human-to-human approach. And my job is to make sure you can bring your whole self and do your best work while you bring value at pace in a fun and collaborative way. So we're glad to see you all here today. I also will have, you can probably skip to the next slide, Holly, because then you can see their lovely faces. Holly, who you just met, and I'm sure you all know already, and Brett Triffitt, who is our Growth and Resource Development Manager in TAD. Do y'all want to say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Perfect. Great. So we'll just skate onward then. Most importantly, and as always, I start today acknowledging the country on which we meet and pay respect to the traditional owners here in Australia of the land and their elders past, present, and emerging. And anyone on the call who is of a traditional descent, I welcome you specifically and particularly today. Here at TAD, one of the ways that Oz Minerals is approaching innovation and technology is through this group, through Think and Act Differently, or TAD as we like to call it. So we believe that only when we consider all of our stakeholders equally, and you can see those groups at the top of your screen, can we really unlock the full potential of modern mining. So TAD is working hard to build an ecosystem to explore and accelerate the themes that prioritize social and environmental responsibility. And we seek out and support rolling cohorts of innovators to tackle their biggest risks and hypotheses through short experiments with us. And you'll meet a couple people who we're entering into some short experiments with in our Calgary setting today. We believe that implementing real change demands a systems approach, and that enables some trade-offs and risks that can be fully understood and depends on a high level of collaboration among a diverse group of people such as yourselves. So we're really glad to see you all here today. And we are in TAD as much about developing these ways of working as we are about taking advantage of the new technologies and ideas that you bring. It's lovely to have you all here. The open house is relatively new for us. We launched it last year to invite people from all industries and all walks of life to share your ideas for new ways that resources can be extracted sustainably. So there are a couple of different ways to get involved. You can approach us at any time. The funnel is always open to give your ideas and solutions to us, anything that you think would be useful for our industry or unlocking the modern mine. But we also put out some very specific kind of focus areas that are applicable to the work that we're doing right now. And you'll hear a bit more about what those are a bit later. So I might actually hand over to Brett. Here we go, who's going to speak a bit more about some of the technology areas that we are feeling particularly curious about right now and where we think our forward work plan will see us seeking your input a bit later in the year. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, everybody. So all of our work in TAD is now being very focused on 3 concepts of operations, and we're using these concepts of operations to guide our work and to help us to paint a picture about what the future assets of Oz Minerals could potentially look like, particularly when we put an aspirational hat on and think about the future ore bodies or the future projects of Oz Minerals having a very low footprint. And so the 3 concepts of operations that we talk about are precision extraction, in situ recovery, and in-mine recovery. Now, at the moment, we have a project that we are pursuing called Kalkaroo. And if any of you follow us in the media, you will, or via ASX releases, you will be aware that we are in a partnership with a company called Havilah that own a project called Kalkaroo. And so TAD is knee-deep in trying to unlock the value of Kalkaroo through the lens of those 3 concepts of operations. There are some areas that we are really focusing in on where the early work that we've done over the last few months has identified where the key value levers are, we believe, for unlocking Kalkaroo. And so those are listed on the slide there: blasting, autonomous connected electric mine fleet, multi-stage sensor-based ore sorting, and pit slope optimization. So we've had some some rooms open in our open house over the last few months around a couple of those areas, and they continue to be real focus areas for us. And so what I really just wanted to do to everyone on the line today was just to re-emphasize those are very much of interest to us, and keep your submissions coming through in those particular areas. And we really want you to focus on those. But I'm also going to flag some other areas, maybe on the next slide. Thank you, Holly, around future themes that we're curious about. And so these are some areas that we're particularly interested in from a future perspective, and we wanted to throw these out to the crowd to start to build a bit of excitement about the sort of areas that we might look at in the future. These are not really current, I guess, current focus areas. The ones that I talked about on the previous slide are the current ones, but these are the things that we think could potentially be of interest into the future. So modularity and modular architectures. So how can we build a much more flexible flow sheet and a much more flexible approach to mine design into the future? We're interested in as a service execution and delivery models. So as we're designing up our new projects and thinking about Kalkaroo here now as well, what are the alternate innovative thinking that we can bring to the table around how we actually execute and deliver those projects, or parts of those projects? Energy demand and storage, waste dumps and tailings designs, flow sheet improvements. Kalkaroo at the moment is a fairly traditional grinding and flotation flow sheet. So we'll be looking for some input from the crowd over time around how we might improve the flow sheet. Some interesting opportunities both at Kalkaroo, but also at some of our other assets around rare earths and cobalt. With our aspirations around decarbonisation, offset and sequestration, I think is potentially a really interesting area that we'll be looking at exploring as we push towards much more aspirational targets. And then the last one is, I think, a particularly interesting one. It's around some data science challenges potentially coming up in the future around ore body insights based on scanning and simulation. So for Kalkaroo, we're in the process of scanning probably about 10 to 15,000 meters of core from that ore body. And we're going to be running all of that core scanning data through a simulator of a number of different flow sheets. And that's going to generate a huge number of data sets around that particular project. So we think there's going to be some opportunities to run some data science challenges around how the project can be optimized based on those data sets. So I guess watch this space for those coming up. So with that, I'll hand over to Holly, I think.
Amazing. Thanks, Brett.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. And I think if I'm not too much at liberty at saying this, I think all of those areas, even though they are future thinking things, we're still encouraging people to put submissions in for them now, because there's obviously Kalkaroo project, but TAD is also investing in supporting people from those subject areas as well.
Absolutely.
So moving directly on to talk about why would you, as an innovator, as a service provider, why would you kind of get involved in TAD? So I think, there's a number of benefits for people in becoming part of the TAD ecosystem, and we really do call it an ecosystem because we're really about supporting innovators and businesses in multiple ways and connecting with each other as well. So some of the key benefits are really around, connecting more broadly with the Oz Minerals leadership team and getting exposure for your idea within the business. So even if your idea isn't something that is particularly relevant for one of the TAD teams at the moment, and it's more suitable to operations, we'll push that through to the relevant people in the operations team. So even if you have technology that's kind of ready to go, we can support you there. And as well as things like funding experiments, we also can provide access to kind of mentors and technical experts, access to data to help you, assess some of your technologies, access to different types of resources. We often get asked for things like samples and things like that for test work. I think a really key point about TAD is that we're really not seeking to own any IP. So it's really, at TAD, we're really interested in getting access to your technology. And we understand that to do that, you need to be supported to develop your own IP. So we want to be able to help you de-risk that and to be able to, help you get your ideas to market faster than you might otherwise be able to do. So I think that's a really great differentiator of the TAD programs. And to my initial point as well, the ecosystem has a really broad number of experts, of startups, of entrepreneurs, of industry people, and so through that ecosystem you have opportunities to connect with people and collaborate with them as well. And I think some of the cohort approaches that TAD has taken, where you're bringing lots of different people together to solve a particular problem, really emphasizes that way. You're getting lots of people from different backgrounds coming together, and we're able to kind of accelerate solving some of those really big challenges in that way. So yeah, definitely get involved, and if you have any more questions about what it looks like to get involved, pop them in the chat.
Fantastic. There's some comments already.
And then Jess, you wanted me to take this one, talking about these as well. So yeah, we wanted to just give you a bit of a snapshot of what that looks like practically in terms of what's TAD supported to date. So so far, and TAD is still relatively young, even though they have done a huge amount of things so far over the last couple of years. Already 18 months supported 40 innovators or companies to progress their ideas, and that's from over 247 submissions to the TAD challenges to date. And you can see some of the various challenges up here. In addition to open house, we've had specific challenges around use of hydrogen in mining, to Brett's point before, around scalable and adaptable mining, getting more value from waste as well. And so we've had the ecosystem, the broader ecosystem of TAD, grow to almost 2,500 people through all of these challenges. So really excited to have you guys be a part of the ecosystem as well, and start helping us tackle some of these really important global mining problems.
Amazing.
And I'll hand over to Jess to hand over to Greg.
Sure. We're really excited to have met Greg Dorr from Nimble Resources through the open house process. So he submitted in our first round of calls. And Greg's with us on the line today. He's just going to speak for a minute about who he is and why TAD, how he found us, and the work that we hope to do together, and the mutual value that we aspire to create. So no pressure, Greg. We're really excited to have you.
Great, thanks, Jess. So by way of introduction, I'm Greg Dorr, Managing Director of Nimble Resources. And Nimble has, it's basically a privately owned gold exploration and ESG rated processing solutions. So we have a trial mining event starting at the moment at our Dixie project in Kalgoorlie, which we're very excited about, and we'll be employing the use of our endless dry mining system. It's a mobile system, and it uses RAC concentration technology. So partnering with Oz through the TAD has given us a lot of help with this particular event and future events, because our technology is it's basically available for any heavy mineralization. And through the TAD, we've been able to have many benefits, including exposure, technical support, and then TAD has also introduced us to a group who are now putting our particular technology through an AI machine learning optimization model. And that's been extremely beneficial to us. And it's also helping us to hone how we may further develop the technology on site. So partnering with Oz and TAD has really helped in that circumstance, really getting to the bottom of the technical issues associated with what we're trying to do. And we've also had introductions to other pieces of complementary technology through TAD, and that's been hugely beneficial. For instance, we're looking at using a new technology to measure particle density sizing, and for us, that's half the battle associated with recovery. So those are the benefits that we've gotten from TAD, and then also we hope to benefit or co-benefit Oz Minerals because we think our technology has a marketplace within mineral processing, and we think that now's a good time as well. In this environment, there's high emphasis on high SG rated products, and we're very happy to be exposed to that through the TAD. So within the next 2 months, we'll have a much greater understanding and feedback of our product and how that may fit in with Oz Minerals. So it's very exciting times for us, and we're very happy to be a part of it with Oz.
Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. And if you have any questions for Greg or how he got involved, you can pop those in the chat as well. In the meantime, I will hand over to Stefano, who is also on the line. Stefano comes to us from Optimal Slope. And I think same questions to you, just a little bit about who you are and what work you hope to do with us and why you came to TAD.
Right. Yeah, so I'm Stefano Utili, and I'm CEO and co-founder of Optimal Slope. And let's say we are a company that produces a piece of software for the design of slopes. So the name says what it is on the can, if you wish. And optimal because the novel idea is to do topological optimization. So in other words, when to introduce in the design of open pit mines, the concept of having a slope whose shape is specifically optimal for that specific stratigraphy, for that specific mine, so not any slope. And so far, we've done some case studies where we've shown on, let's say, 3 different mines that there could be substantial benefits in terms of saving the amount of waste rock. So the idea is when we have an open pit mine that the slopes are designed in order to ensure stability. We don't want clearly a big failure, and keeping safety, keeping the level of safety, which typically is prescribed by the mine team, to have slopes that, because of their optimal shape, can be overall steeper, and therefore, in order to extract the same amount of ore, but substantially reducing the amount of rock that needs to be excavated, and this would drive down the costs of excavation, and also at the same time reducing the amount of tailings, which is always a liability, and reducing the amount of carbon footprint, since the carbon footprint is proportional to the amount of rock which is excavated. So in a way, this is about us as a business. We're a young startup. We've been out there for the last 18 months. And I guess we're really quite recent in terms of TAD. So I found out about this specific call on slope engineering, I guess now 2 months and a half ago. And yeah, what I want to say was like, I think was very nice the process actually of applying, because you know, I've applied in the past to different grants or other my incubator here in the UK, and a lot of time is spent on this, and sometimes you feel like maybe the questions are not really relevant. Instead, I have to say that for that was nice, because basically in a morning, so let's say 4-hour max work, I was able to fill in all the various bits, and then I think after 3 weeks after submission, I was already contacted, and there was a meaningful discussion. So first point that, because normally, like, you know, the time is in short supply, especially for startups, innovators, etc. So it's to say that I have the feeling that TAD is really efficient, and so in this respect, the application process was smooth and nimble. And yeah, and the other point, I guess, how to find out that was, I guess, by chance, and but was something related to something I read on another competition, and then at the end I came across TAD. So perhaps it's just like to say that it's always good to word of mouth, like to let, if you have anyone in mind, know, because perhaps the most difficult really part is to find out about the opportunity. Once you hear it's in a way, the most difficult part has been done. And yes, I mean, I don't know if I've answered the whole question, but perhaps the other point to say is like, now we've also been involved with this Calcaroo project, and I you know, we've been here sort of short time, but I think I can already see like there is, I mean, TAD and OZ Minerals, I would say, mean for business. So definitely is worth applying and see ways to get involved.
Thank you so much. It's heartwarming, Stefano, and your experience is really important to us. So that was really lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, look, I don't think we could ask for a better recommendation than these two were happy to give us. Thank you. What we really wanted to do was showcase the innovators and the process, and really just, I suppose, assure all of you with ideas that we are very approachable and very excited to speak to all of you and sort of test these ideas as much as we can. So we did call out the focus areas that are on your screen around blasting and autonomous connected electric mining and sensor-based ore and pit optimization. But if there are other ideas that you have, don't hold back. The whole point of the open house was to unconstrain our thinking and make sure that we weren't limiting what comes to us and the ways that we can innovate towards that modern mind. So that's really, really important. I think now I'm just going to say thank you for listening and take your questions. And thank you to Brett, who's been chatting away to answer questions as we go. So it's been fantastic to see that chat happening. And Dave Samet, who was in one of our very first cohorts, is on here giving his perspective as well, which is amazing. Some of my favorite stories involve Dave. So questions, Holly, you want to?
Yeah, please, people stop popping your questions in the chat. And now I know James and David, you kind of are keen to discuss some general topics. Yep. I think if there's any specific questions that you have on those topics, that'd be really helpful to kind of help Brett and some of the others team like kind of answer some of those questions. I think in general, if you're interested to talk to your technology with the TAD team, I definitely would recommend following just the application process as, you know, Stefano said, it's really quick to do. And then it really helps the team at TAD understand who are the right people to come to the call and get that early information so we can help come, you know, prepared to that session as well. So yeah, but if there's any specific questions on, so I know, James, you're keen to talk about the tailing side of things. So yeah, if you have any specific questions, please pop them in the chat. Brian has asked about any visibility on the implications of the BHP transaction. So Jess, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're really lucky that BHP is interested in our company because they see the value that they place on it and our unique set of assets and processes and this sort of growth pipeline and to modern mining that we're building. So for us, it's business as usual. To ensure that we can continue to, you know, create value as always. And if anything changes, obviously the innovators are going to be some of the first people that we go to. But for now, we just trust that we'll keep on keeping on and perhaps only see this as an opportunity to continue to grow and expand in the same vein that we've been carrying forward so far.
Yes. And now, Dave, good technical question. So how is the grade recovery curve for Calcaroo? Is there any opportunity to capture extra metal by producing lower grade or polymetallic concentrate instead of throwing it away with the tailings?
I'm going to guess that's a question for me.
Well, I can't answer it.
Not it.
So good question, Dave. So I guess the other metals, let's call them, that are present in the deposit at Calcaroo are the rare earths. Obviously, I've talked about cobalt. I've talked about. There's some also some molybdenite, which is kind of interesting, although in low grade, and then gold as well. So some of those metals do recover into the copper concentrate. Those that are either sulfides or associated with sulfides, as you would expect. So I would suggest that if we could make a bulk concentrate containing many of those metals, that then there's an opportunity to do something to recover those metals from concentrate, whether it's a concentrate leach or some other methodology. I think some of the the rare earths, for example, more than likely are not going to be associated with sulfide minerals. And so need a different approach. But I would suggest, to answer your question in the chat, that there is an opportunity and we should explore it. And happy to get your ideas on what that might look like.
That's right. And I think a slightly similar kind of question from David previously around, could we have some discussion on intermediate products? And then is there anything you can mention on kind of the characterization of the waste that might be able to help people think about products they might be able to develop? And I love the TAD hat, Dave.
Holly, I think there are opportunities to look at alternate products. The ones I mentioned are the ones that are probably of most interest and have kind of piqued the most kind of focus for the team, and they have started looking at some of those opportunities already. But that probably only accounts for 2% or 3% of the entirety of what's present in the Kalkaroo deposit. So if there are other ideas out there around other types of products, I think we'd love to hear about that, particularly ones that could help us reduce the volume of tailings that we produce. And actually, let's create some real value from what would otherwise be considered a waste product.
Awesome, thanks.
James obviously has a lot of enthusiasm and I think it's fantastic. So those are some quite specific questions, and I'm not sure if we would know them off the top of our heads. But what I would say, James, is if you go through the process, the first thing that we do after someone submits, if we think there's sort of a bit of a differentiator in the idea that comes through, and it is really important that you help us to understand why your idea is different or better than the incumbent, then we set up a really quick technical one-on-one with you just to chat, understand what data you'd need to progress, get a CA in place if we need one. And we do move forward quite quickly to answer some of those more specific questions. So I would encourage you just to put your submission through, make it really, really clear what's different about what you're offering us to talk about. And we'll be in touch quite quickly to sort of talk about some of those specifics and make sure the right people are in the room to answer those questions with you.
And a good question from Dave. I don't think we can answer that now, but it might be something that we can take away to consider, like what is the kind of, if there's any data that we can just share generally,
Yep.
or under CA or something like that, or have a bit of a data room.
Yeah. I would fully expect, as I flagged in the presentation, in the next, probably in post-June, we would be looking at, I think there's going to be lots of data opportunities, and we'd be tailoring up some very specific data related challenges. So watch this space for that one. Absolutely.
I mean, we did our first data science challenge earlier in the year around geoshapes, and it's been really successful, something we're really keen to keep pushing on with. So we're prepping probably in a few months' time to launch something about that in the next open house. Amazing.
Cool. Any more questions coming through? If we don't have any more questions, we might wrap up in a few minutes. But so while we're waiting for final questions to come through, is there anything else, Jess or Brett or any of the other Oz members on the call that you'd like to share with the group?
I want to say howdy. There's actually quite a few alumni on the call. I just switched to the gallery view while I had a second to breathe and not speak, and it's wonderful to see so many of you still connected into the ecosystem. It makes me feel really, really proud.
Yeah, and it's so good to see some TAD hats on the call.
And some people who've only submitted recently and we've just met with this week, right? I saw Lyndon pop on earlier, and I think we just talked to him yesterday, so it's fantastic. Amazing.
So I'll give everyone just a couple more minutes if there's any questions you have, and feel free to just pop your hand up if you want to just come off mute instead of type. But yeah, give everyone a couple more minutes, and then and then we'll close out. And yeah, to those of you that have submitted, as Jess said, we do go through things pretty quickly. And we also, if we have passed on your submissions to operations, sometimes that does take a bit more time to get your feedback, but we will follow that up as well, to make sure that we kind of loop back on all of those submissions that are kind of ready to engage with the operations already.
And most importantly, it is early for Stefano, and I just want to say thank you for joining us, and to Greg, who drove back from a site that he's running some test work on just to meet all of you today. I'm really, really grateful for the innovators who give us their time and lean into this process. It would be a very empty funnel and conversation without your faces and your opinions. So thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Well, we don't seem to be having any more questions.
Thanks.
Coming through. So I know you kind of just closed out, Jess, but I might officially hand back to you to do an official
I'm
closing.
running out of things to end with.
I will just quickly say from an admin side, we will send this recording out to everyone once we just double checked it for the content, and we'll put it on YouTube as well. So yeah, you can expect to get a recording for us, and all of us are pretty much available for questions via email or forums, and as we said, we'll get back to you pretty quickly on any submissions as well. So and
probably the other thing I will say is, if you aren't ready to make a submission, but you are just interested in the work that TAD is doing or what we are up to, we have a virtual engagement room. And so you can always go online through OzMinerals under how we work, look for Think and Act Differently. You can look around at all the challenges we've run. You can read our white papers from our previous experiments and some of the faces you've seen on the line and under hats today. And also you can just register your, thank you, the links in the chat. You can register your general interest, and that just puts you on any of our mailings or things that we publicize in terms of new challenges or directions that we're taking. So if you don't have an idea that you're ready to talk about yet, but you just want to remain connected, that's a really good way to do so.
Great.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you all. Can't wait for your ideas.